So today is a new topic from yesterday, but I didn't forget something. Yesterday's video, I mentioned a topic. It was a secondary topic called anima, I am what? And I forgot to say that my main source, even though I wrote it in the description of the video, was Alberto Villaldo. He calls himself a shaman, so I'm not necessarily using him as like an authority on any of these topics that I'm sharing, but I do want to say that I was inspired by some of his ideas about our animal DNA imprints that are able to give us our wisdom, like not being afraid of our animal aspects. Okay, so I'm going to share now from a few different so parsha in Hebrew is the idea of portion. It's a portion of the 5 books of Moses. It's divided into the 52 weeks. Some years are leap years. I've mentioned this before, that the parshas are doubled up, some of them, and sometimes they're separated. In a leap year you have more weeks, so they're separated. So when we say parsha, we say this, each week has its portion. Not every week of every year, the same date is the same one, because of as I mentioned, in the course of either in 19 years there's 7 leap years, or maybe it's 17 years there's 9 leap years, something like that. So in parshas shemini, the portion is called shemini. It's in chapter 11 verse 3. It says, everything among animals that has split hooves, completely separated, and brings up its cud is kosher. Now, the camel only chews its cud, while the pig only has split hooves. So these are listed as not kosher. And a lot of people say, well, why is the pig so terrible? The idea is that a pig shows that it has the split hooves, but actually it is not chewing its cud. So something on the outside versus the camel is hiding on the inside, the chewing the cud, but really the feet are not split. So it's idea like kosher is also about the inside, not just the outside. I will talk about that in the future, in later recordings. Then in verse 9 it says, everything with fins and scales in the water, sea, and stream is kosher. And now I'm glad that this is coming up, because I had an Uber driver. I rescued a bird, and I brought it to Manhattan to the Wildlife Bird Fund today. And the Uber driver was asking me about kosher, about if all Jews are really rich, and a few other interesting topics. We spoke about evolution, and we spoke about a lot of interesting things. We even spoke about sex, like men and women, a relationship. We spoke about all of it in the context of a Jewish lens, and I think he felt really inspired, and he wants to be a father. So that was amazing. Okay, verse 13, the birds that can't be eaten are listed. And in verse 20, 21, 22, flying teeming creatures on 4 legs are abomination, except one with jumping legs above its legs for springing, and it says it's called arba, salam, chargol, and chagab. These are types of locusts. It also says a lot of things about, I didn't write it here, but like things that crawl on their belly, mice, rats are called disgusting, a lot of other similar creepy crawlies, and so on. No bugs. Okay, 3 and 4 of parshas acharei, chapter 17. 3 and 4. Any Israel man must slaughter the ox, sheep, or goat, or in or out of the camp, but didn't bring it to the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting for the tabernacle of Hashem. It's likened to bloodshed. In other words, slaughtering an animal, not for being... Oh, and another thing about kosher is you have to slaughter the animal. It can't be ripped apart. It can't be, died on its own. And the thing is that if you're offering a sacrifice and then... like the Ramban, Nachmanides, actually clarifies, this is talking about only when it's not food. You don't have to go all the way to Israel at the time of the diaspora or whatever, and the thing is, there isn't the tent of meeting or for the tabernacle of Hashem, and eventually the holy temple. So people can't do that. So the point here is that if it's going to be a sacrifice for God, you can't do it outside and then not bring it. You have to bring it there. Number 5. So they bring from one open field to Hashem, and not just in any convenient place, just where they are. That's Rashi saying it on it. Basically, don't do it out in the open field and say, oh, this is for Hashem, I kill this animal. Like just hunting for no reason. It's not for food, and it's not a sacrifice for God from your portion. Verse 8, so they stopped serving offerings to the spirits, they call it, like Se'irim. Trying to appease an intermediary is actually straying from God. It's Ibn Ezra says it's like of the open field. This is kind of like we could say that the Native American mythology a lot of the hunting and getting the animals. They sort of want to appease the gods of the forest or the spirits, right? So this is Judaism says we don't use intermediaries, we connect straight to God. Then we have verse 14, the life of any creature is its blood, not to consume for the native Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, or the proselyte, the convert. That's why when basically I said to him today also, I don't know if I told him we can't eat blood, or somebody mentioned to me something about there was this libel that the Jews put blood in the matzah, and I'm like, but first of all, we're not even allowed to eat blood. Second of all, we're not allowed to kill a baby, like they were saying they used to kill babies and put their blood. I said, we're not allowed to kill. It's against the Torah to kill. It's against the Torah unless it's like they have a death penalty. They didn't have jails. If you were going around murdering people, they had the death penalty. If you were going around sleeping with women who are about to be engaged to their husband and taking away their virginity and raping, they had a lot of different things. Like if you had an animal that kept killing people and you didn't stop the animal or tie it up, there was a death penalty. There's multiple different things. Like if somebody has sex with a mother and then the daughter, death penalty. So in other words, any abomination, sickness, crazy, things that make anti-life, things that are separating, dividing, not cohesive unity, they were all anti-life, they got death penalty. And then if somebody accidentally kills someone, there is room in the Torah for what's called a blood avenger, to avenge the blood of your family, of your relative. The Torah says this is a natural instinct, and it says there are cities of refuge where someone can go. If let's say they're driving and they accidentally kill someone. Now, it isn't a good place, it isn't a good state to need to go to the city of refuge, but they exist. Nobody can come avenge the blood over there. And in that place, they say that the people who had accidentally killed had to stay there until the high priest died. And I'll talk about this in the future. But what happened was the mother of the high priest would go to the city of refuge and bring gifts and beautiful treasures for the people, so they would stop praying for her son to die, so they could go back to their homes. And because who knew he could die now, he could die later. So just some interesting comments. Basically, there's no way that we had blood in the and of course, obviously, causing death through defense. I mean, Israel has the Israel Defense Army. They're not attacking anyone. They're not trying to kill. Like I said, it's against Torah. What they're doing is defending the land, the women, the children. Parshas kedoshim. So we did parshas shemini, parshas acharei mos, parshas kedoshim. Chapter 19, verse 3. Every man, your mother and father, shall you revere, and my Sabbath shall you revere. I am Hashem, your God. Verses 9 and 10. You shouldn't completely reap the field's harvest to its corners, and gleanings not take, nor underdeveloped twigs, fallen fruit of the vineyard, for the poor and the convert, the proselyte. Leave them for them. I am Hashem, your God. Then basically do these things like you think you're doing it to be in pro-tribal, pro-social behaviors, but actually it's for Hashem. Hashem says you're doing it for me, not because you want to get along with each other. Even though obviously it makes sense, of course, your kinsmen, your tribe, everyone's together. If you feed another person, you have another person that's part of the tribe. They could do work, they could help you, they could defend you. If someone's sick, they could step in, right? Of course, we want them all to do well, but that's not why. It's because Hashem said so. Verse 11 and 12, you shouldn't steal, deny falsely, or lie to each other, and you shall not swear falsely by my name, thereby desecrating the name of your God. I am Hashem. Verses 17 and 18, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall remove your fellow and do not bear. You shall reprove your fellow, like rebuke him if he needs, and don't bear sin because of him. You shall not take revenge. You shall not bear a grudge against the members of your people. You shall love your fellow as yourself. I am Hashem. In Shabbos 31a in the Talmud, Hillel says, what is hateful to you, do not do for others. And Rashi and Sifra, Rabbi Akiva, and they all say, basically Rabbi Akiva says this is the fundamental rule of the Torah, and Rashi and Sifra comment on it. Also Kiddushin 41a and Niddah 17a say a husband may not put his wife in situations that will make her distasteful for him. Verse 20 and verse 21 in Shifra Charufa. If a man, this is called the topic is Shifra Charufa. If a man, let's hear what that is. It's a slave woman who is designated for another man. She was a designated slave woman. In other words, slave of a Jewish person is very different than what people might think based on slave trades that happen later on. In terms of a slave woman, she is often sold for a number of reasons, including so that people would take care of her, including if she's designated to marry someone in the family when she gets older, including for her to have work. And I think it also has to do with if her father, if she was like taken from a village, and I'm sorry, there's two things here. One is if her father, I believe if her father is paying something back, but I think there's a whole story about that. I'm not sure. I don't want to say yes or no for that, but I will say that there's something to do with if she was taken, right, and she's basically not kidnapped, but taken into like maybe she's an orphan or something, and so like in order to take care of her, she helps out in the house and so on. They're not there to humiliate them. They're not allowed to like hurt them and beat them to the point that they're suffering. That's where the whole idea of an eye for an eye and stuff like that comes from. Actually, it's from how they treated they say you have to actually, there's a lot of teachers that say the tradition has passed down, you have to treat your slave as good as you. If you only have one bed, your slave gets it. If you only have one piece of meat, your slave gets it. Okay, just putting that out there. It's very different. With the male slaves, that's why I got confused about the father. Really, it's not her father. It's when it's male slaves. It's not female. When a male slave steals something and he can't pay it back, when a male steals something and he can't pay it back, he becomes a slave. So that's what I mean. In order like to correct the situation. But that's not. I don't think it's the same with a woman unless maybe she steals something and she can't pay it back. But it wasn't about her father. I don't think a man who steals something can give his daughter as a slave in his place. I don't think so, actually. I think that was a mistake I made. Anyway, if a man lies carnally with a woman and she's a slave woman who's been designated for another man and who has not been redeemed or freedom has not been granted her, there shall be an investigation. They shall not be put to death, for she has not been freed. Can you imagine? He shall bring his guilt offering to Hashem, to the entrance of the tent of meeting, a ram guilt offering. Verse 26, 27, 28, and 29. You shall not eat over the blood. You shall not indulge in sorcery. You shall not believe in lucky times. You shall not round off the edges of your scalp. You shall not destroy the edge of your beard. You shall not make a cut in your flesh for the dead, and a tattoo you shall not place upon yourselves. I am Hashem. Do not profane your daughter to make her a harlot, lest the land become lewd and the land become filled with depravity. Verse 32, 33, 34. In the presence of an old person you shall rise, and you shall honor the presence of a sage, and you shall revere your God. I am Hashem. When a proselyte, a convert, dwells among you in your land, do not taunt him. The proselyte who dwells with you shall be like a native among you, and you shall love him like yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am Hashem your God. Verse 35 and 36. You shall not commit perversion and injustice in measures of length, weight, volume. You shall have correct scales, correct weights, correct dry measures, and correct liquid measures. I am Hashem, your God, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt. Chapter 20, verse 3. I shall concentrate my attention upon a man and cut him off from among his people, for he has given from his offspring to Molech in order to defile my sanctuary and desecrate my holy name. This was considered to be a idol, a deity, like they would sacrifice the children in the fire. And there is a teacher called Rabbi YY Jacobson who does say that Molech nowadays means when you decide you give up on a child and you just let him go into the world and you don't continue to fight for him and help him and educate him and love him or her. Chapter 20, verse 7 and 8. You shall sanctify yourselves and you'll be holy, for I am Hashem your God. You shall observe my decrees and perform them. I am Hashem who sanctifies you. And finally, verse 26. You shall be holy for me, for I Hashem am holy, and I've separated you from the people to be mine. Stopping here. Have a good night. Bye.